Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. On our Game Day segment, we are joined today by the Angel of the Big House, beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Before that, my final view from Section 17 until next season. It's been another long and emotional year for Michigan football. We've had almost a month to digest another loss to Ohio State, and in that time we've also heard the opinion of many from the outside saying the talent gap between Ohio State and Michigan is widening. We also pulled in a top 15 recruiting class and heard from the recruiting experts that it was a good group, but not the kind of top 5 class we need to compete with the handful of elite programs dominating the playoffs. We've also read countless analysts and experts tell us Michigan fans need to lower our expectations. We are a program with a great history, a good football team, but not elite anymore. I don't buy any of that rubbish, and you shouldn't either. We need to get better, no doubt, and we need to someday soon slay that dragon that is Ohio State. But all that can wait for now. Our reward for a 9-3 season is a berth in the Citrus Bowl against Alabama, a team that would be in the playoffs if Tua hadn't gone down. There is no doubt in my mind about that. If we thought Ohio State was good, well, NFL scouts will tell you this. Alabama is 10-2, but they have much more talent than Ohio State. Bottom line, this is a great opportunity and challenge for us, and not many of the experts expect us to win. But that's why you play the game. My guest today says the same thing about Alabama as she did when previewing the Ohio State game. It will take a near-perfect performance for Michigan if we expect to be in this game and have a chance to win. She thinks it will be an uphill battle, though. Joining us next on our final Game Day segment of the year is the Angel of the Big House, beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News, here on the Michigan Man, in partnership with our friends at SB Nation's Maize and Brew, so stay with us. Back with us as we preview the bowl game. He just talks of Michigan football in general. He's a beat writer, Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Once again, great to have you back, Angelique.
Oh, Mike, I'm so happy to be back. Last time we talked was before the Ohio State game, and that obviously didn't go well. So now we're going to talk about the bowl game, and we'll see where that goes.
Well, you're right. It did not go well at all, and here we are. And considering how the season ended with that game, a beatdown at home to Ohio State, Michigan could not have asked for a better bowl bid, could they?
Oh, I really did think, I really thought they'd end up perhaps in the Holiday Bowl. I know that was one of the bowls being discussed, and maybe the Gator Bowl. And this is a dynamite spot for them. I mean, the Citrus Bowl, yeah, Orlando, they've been there a million times, but at least they're not playing Florida again. They're playing Alabama, and it's a marquee matchup. I think it'll get a lot of eyeballs, and I think that there's a lot of motivation, and I think it's for both teams. I mean, that conference call with both coaches after the selections were made, I mean, Nick Saban sounded awfully determined, too, to right the ship at Alabama. I mean, this is a down year for them. That sounds kind of funny, but that's a program that's used to being in the playoff and playing for a championship, and they sound awfully motivated, and Michigan sounds awfully motivated. So I think that's going to make for a pretty interesting week leading up to the game and certainly the game.
As you said, Alabama had sort of a down year, which at 10-2, that sounds strange to say, but when you look at that team, if Tua had not been injured, there's still a very good chance Alabama would have been in the playoffs. They are that good.
They are that good. I mean, their offense is that good. I think you can nitpick the defense. The Alabama defense might, but that offense, I mean, they're explosive. They've got great receivers, three probable first-round picks, and Tua is just extremely efficient. He was, I think, fourth in passing yards at the time of his injury, which was late in the season. And they've got Najee Harris, a very good running back, and a couple tackles on this offensive line that again are definite high pro picks. And this is an explosive offense. I do think you can say, maybe there's some things missing on the defense and a couple guys now sitting out, but this is formidable.
Well, it really is. And I guess the one thing that surprises me and has since the bowl bid was announced is that it's only been roughly a 7-point spread. I'm not a Vegas guy, not a gambler, but still I thought, the Ohio State spread was double digits. I thought it would be the same for this game, didn't you?
Oh, well, yeah, for sure. And I don't know if it's still there. There's this anticipation that several more Alabama players will sit out. I mean, I think that's what everyone thought would happen. This is a program that's not used to playing in something other than a playoff. And, maybe they'll do what a lot of other teams do and have players decide to sit and not play like Michigan did last year before the Peach Bowl with 4 starters opting to sit out. And, I so far I've been sort of surprised. I thought there would be more too from Alabama, and that's not the case. So I imagine that's why the line was set so low. I mean, I think we're in agreement there, and so I'll be curious to see if it moves. But because I'm not a Vegas person either, and so I when people talk about movement and the money's here and there, I always get a little confused. I'm like, oh, okay, but I am a little surprised by the lack of players that from Alabama who said they're sitting out, and I think that's affecting and could affect the line going forward here before the game.
Yeah, there's only been 2 players, I believe, from Alabama say they are not going to play, and their daily reports from practice, they're making a point that everyone is dressed and practicing, so I would be surprised if anyone else in Alabama says they're not going to play.
Well, I mean, you don't know. As the days get closer to the bowl game, and maybe these guys are like, well, okay, I am going to sit, but I want to keep working out with the team, and I want to stay in shape. That could happen. I don't know, but I'm reading the same reports, Mike, and they are making that point, just as Michigan players have made the point that no one is mispracticed, no one's sitting out. And that certainly can change as agents talk to players who could leave early or seniors who are leaving. People get in their ears, and those decisions that seem like they're made now are not. And so I'm not closing the door on players from either team deciding to sit out. But right now, as it stands, it sounds like both teams feel like they're going to have pretty much everybody playing and available.
After the Ohio State game, Angelique, the discussion in the following week or weeks was about the talent gap that exists between Ohio State and Michigan, and we could do an entire show on that, though. The same gap exists between Michigan and Alabama, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think a lot of these players we talked to, Mike, after their award show last Sunday, they talked about this team reminds them of Ohio State, and that's lofty praise. I mean, Ohio State's got all this talent on offense, and that's what Alabama looks like to them. And the talent gap has to be substantial. Again, I'm not going to subscribe to that entirely. And I've had this sort of debate in my head over the last couple of weeks, Mike, that maybe it's too easy to say, well, Ohio State's got too many 5-stars and they've got this and that. I think there's so many elements to why Ohio State's ahead of the game here, and it's not just accumulating 5-stars. And the same thing with Alabama. And they've had some consistency, in Alabama with Nick Saban there and the way he runs that program and the talent they've brought in. And it's a machine, just like Ohio State's become. And perhaps Michigan can get there at some point, but it is going to take time. And they certainly are doing that with their recruiting class, identifying needs. But back to your question, yeah, I mean, this is that kind of team that Michigan has to measure itself against to see either how close they are or how far they are. And, you can look at that Ohio State game and just go, wow, they are so far. And even last year's game, but then there are a couple games that I look at, the Ohio State game, the JT was short game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they win that game, the narrative's a little different. They win the next year with John O'Korn at quarterback. I thought, wow, they had a great game plan. They had a lead, a 2-touchdown lead, and I think with a more talented quarterback, they win that game. And I know it's a lot of ifs, but my point is, those two games, it didn't look like the talent gap was enormous. But going into this one, yeah, I think offensively, Alabama's got some just amazing talent, just like Ohio State did. Across the board, offensive line, running back. I mean, my goodness. I mean, what J.K. Dobbins did, I don't know that Najee Harris is as good as J.K. Dobbins. I don't think so. But they've got all the compliments. I mean, they've got Smith and Judy and Ruggs at the receiver, and those two tackles are outstanding. So this is going to be very much a chance for Michigan to get a signature win. It's not going to be easy by no means will it be easy, but it will be a good measuring stick game, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Let's talk about some of the matchups in this game, Angelique, and get your thoughts on them. Michigan's offense against that Bama D. Now, they have plenty of 4- and 5-star talent on their defense. They're loaded up, but they have not been a great defense this year for a lot of reasons, have they?
No, you're right. I mean, they have not been great. And I think that's another – I mean, I think every coach is inspired to play better and to be better. And I got that sense, listening to Nick Saban, that this is a chance for them to improve that defense, too, these bowl practices and playing against a good Michigan offense. And, they're 17th nationally in total defense, and they're I think it was 36th against the run. I was looking at these stats last night, and they've got some holes, but they're not terrible by any means either. So no, I think Michigan's offense matches up pretty well with this defense. I just want to see Michigan develop more of a run game, and I think this is an opportunity to have the running backs get some yards and get some confidence against a team like this, because I think that Alabama, you can run on Alabama, and you certainly can score on Alabama. I mean, Auburn did in that win, and they both had, it was a high-scoring game. So, I'm not dismissing the fact that Alabama's offense can put up points just like any other offense can against them. But I like this matchup, and I think Michigan's offensive line got better and better, and I think they're feeling really confident after facing Chase Young in that Ohio State game and neutralizing him for the most part. I still think he was disruptive. I know a lot of people say, well, his stats, he didn't really have any, but he was disruptive still in the backfield. His presence was still known, but I think all in all, I think they did a really good job on him, and I think they carry that confidence going into this game and facing this Alabama defense.
No, I agree. And, I would like to see I'm a run guy, or at least a balanced offense, so I would like to see Michigan come out and try to at least establish some kind of a running game. But, when you listen to a lot of the analysts on BTN, ESPN, when they're previewing this game, even Urban Meyer when he was breaking down the game over the weekend, was saying he thinks Michigan has to come out throwing against Bama like they did against Ohio State, but exclude the mental errors and penalties if they're going to be able to move the ball. I'm not sure if that's true, but it seems to be the opinion from a lot of well-respected analysts.
Well, I mean, and I wonder if they're looking at Michigan's run game. I mean, you look at those last 4 or 5 games; they really weren't productive. And you can say, well, but Shea Patterson was throwing the ball all over the place. Well, yeah, that's true. But I still think, I mean, look what Ohio State did in that game. I mean, they had J.K. Dobbins running, and they threw 4 touchdown passes. I mean, that is the kind of balance I think you need. And but I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think that's been so effective for Michigan, and it sets a tone. You know, they can, but it also sets a tone. I mean, which game was it where they started? They started the game. I think it was every play was a run except maybe 1 or 2, and they scored on that. Maybe it was the Illinois game. I thought, wow, okay, that's effect. That's not speed in space, but it's consistent and it's rugged and it's setting a tone with the run game. It just depends, I think, which way you want to set that tone. And I'm not opposed to what Urban Meyer said. I just think that they have to have a presence from Hassan Haskins and Zach Charbonnet. And you know what I'm curious about, Mike, is we haven't had a chance to talk to Jim Harbaugh since that conference call. But I mean, can Chris Evans? He's been working out with the team. He'll be back with the team January 1st. I mean, how much work is he getting in practice? I don't think he can play in the game, but I'm not sure. I mean, no one has said one way or the other. But I don't know that he's ready to play. But so I think you're looking at these 2 backs, and I think you have to get more production out of them. But yeah, no, I do think that Alabama's got some. They're going to be a little susceptible in the secondary, and Shea Patterson certainly has looked like a different quarterback that last month of the season. And I think you've got some motivated receivers, too, who want to get there. They want to impress scouts. A lot of players are looking at this game as an opportunity to do that. And what better way for a couple of these receivers than to have big receiving games, and for Shea Patterson, getting ready for the Senior Bowl, to have a big performance, too. But I still, like you, I think they need to have a little more balance with that run game.
And I still think that's going to be the game plan to try to achieve some balance, to keep that offense of Alabama off the field, if at all possible, for long periods of time. I think the key, you hear people talking about what is the key for Michigan in this game. The key to me is not so much the game plan, it's that we can't drop the ball down on the goal line and in shotgun snaps and some crazy, stupid penalties. The mental mistakes must be eliminated against a team like Alabama.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, I look back at that Ohio State game, and I mean, there were so many things that were glaring, but the drops were just, you can't do that. I mean, to me, that's to say why, I mean, you got to criticize that as much as you criticize all the fumbles they had early in the season.
Right.
And those are turnovers in a sense. I mean, yeah, okay, maybe you still have another down, but it feels like, you could have scored there. You could have gotten a first down there. And there are a lot of mental mistakes. I don't know, everybody wants to blame everybody for something, point a finger at somebody. I don't know what that is. You hear the players, the coaches after the game, and the players saying it's execution. And well, yeah, it is. But, I mean, that has to be coached too. And, there has to be this constant reminder, you've got to hang on to the ball. You can't have any mental errors. You can't have any stupid penalties, as you mentioned. And, there's a lot to think about. And I'm not suggesting they overthink it, but those were glaring in that game. And it's been something that I think is not just that game. I mean, it wasn't just, and they haven't been immune to these kind of errors all season. So I think this is a game where, they talk about hitting the reset button and rewriting the script for this past season while setting up for the 2020 season. Well, what better way than to show that you've cleaned up these errors? And you're never going to play a perfect game, but these have been largely imperfect because of those errors. And you have a lot of people watching. So what better way to show off than to play a little more disciplined and a little more careful, I guess, is the way to describe it.
That's true. They've got to eliminate those mental mistakes and penalties to stay in this game. Another one of the concerns, I think, is a concern that we talked about in August, the defensive line, but they played very well most of the season, very undersized. We all know that. They were just exposed by two very good offensive lines, Wisconsin and Ohio State's. I'm not going to say Penn State's had their way with Michigan. Wisconsin and Ohio State, definitely. If NFL scouts are right, Bama's offensive line is better or as good as both of those teams. So, when you look at it from a game planning perspective, even slowing down Alabama is going to be asking a lot from this undersized defensive front, isn't it?
Oh, it is, Mike. And talking to Kwity Paye after the awards show, I brought up the yards that they gave up to J.K. Dobbins, and it was also in kind of the bookend. I mean, the game that Jonathan Taylor had at the start of the Big Ten season against Michigan, and the game that Dobbins had in the Ohio State game. And, I just said, well, why hasn't that gotten better? I mean, this is statistically, they're not bad against the run, but against two really good teams, as you've described, with good offensive lines, I think Dobbins could have run for more yards against the Michigan defense. And they are undersized in the interior, and they lack depth there. And the one thing Kwity was saying is that, he said not to make an excuse, but Carlo Kemp was, he said he could barely walk in that game. And I had heard that from other people, and that his feet, he described his feet as, the quote he said was destroyed, and he was playing as hard as he could. And, I think they knew that was going to be limiting, that Carlo Kemp couldn't be wasn't 100%. And couldn't give that effort. I mean, he gave the effort, but he couldn't be that 100% guy that they needed. And, they think he'll be healthy, but that's one person. They definitely need more depth there. And, talking to people who scout, they feel like that Michigan's had some guys on the defensive line playing a little bit out of position. Too many guys who are ends trying to help out in the interior, and they lack a Maurice Hurst kind of guy. I think everybody knows that, and doesn't mean that they can't do this, but that was glaring when you look at this season. Those two games, for obvious reasons, stick out. I mean, they were losses, but I think the way those teams were able to run on Michigan, those are glaring. Those are big concerns. And, how are they going to fix it for Alabama? I guess we'll see. But I guess it's a good thing they've got this month to get Carlo Kemp healthy, because they certainly will need him.
With us on our game day segment as we get ready for the Citrus Bowl is Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Angelique, there's been a lot of talk from media and fans about which team is going to be more motivated in this game. And part of me thinks it's a silly question. Even insulting to the players, because I think it's Alabama, it's Michigan, it's Nick Saban, it's Jim Harbaugh. The expectation is you come out and play. And if you can't get motivated for this kind of a game, that would be pretty sad, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And, I would argue that you've got to be motivated for every game, even if it's against, whatever team, that anybody has on the schedule. I mean, that's why you don't have that many games in a season, so you got to be motivated. But yes, I mean, this takes it up a notch, and of course they're going to be motivated. And I don't think you have to manufacture motivation. I don't think you have to sit there and say, "Okay, guys, we got to get this 10th win." Okay, they know that. I mean, that is a benchmark for the program, but it's not just about that. It's about finding some pride and rebounding after a very difficult loss against Ohio State. And rebounding from a season that didn't live up to their expectations or anybody else's expectations, really, when you look at those preseason prognostications. And this is going to be the team to beat in the East, blah, blah, blah. And, they are playing a team that catches their attention. And I think that is something that players talked about, that last year, coming off of that big loss in Columbus, playing, in the Peach Bowl, it wasn't really against the same team, wasn't really that exciting to anybody. And that's disappointing to hear, I'm sure, and perhaps why some of those guys did decide to sit. But it's definitely a different take this year, at least from the Michigan side. Again, I'm just reading the same things from Alabama that you are, Mike, but I think talking to these players, they do – they do sound like this is a team that's got their attention, and they know what it can do for them too, as individuals, not to mention the team. And I think that's all very extremely motivating for Michigan. And they know that this is a New Year's Day game, and they know that people are going to be watching. It's not the playoff, but it is Alabama. It's on New Year's Day, and it's going to attract so much attention. And there's so many reasons to be motivated, and I'm sure Jim Harbaugh is mentioning that to them every single day when they practice.
Well, we can throw out the cliches when it comes to a game like this between two blue bloods. Anything can happen on any given day. Anyone can get beat. But in reality, especially given the way Michigan played against Ohio State, it is hard to imagine any scenario, for me anyway, that has Michigan winning this game. And I even hate to say that. Bama is just such a talented team, Angelique, that they really have to help in this too, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm totally with you. And, they've got a coach who's won national championships. And let's not forget that he coached at Michigan State. I'm sure there's some lingering issues there. I mean, I remember when he got the job at LSU, I went down, they sent me down there to do a story, and one of the first things he said was it was always Michigan this, Michigan that when he was at Michigan State. And I'm not sure that's something that he carries with him now, but I'm sure it's like he's thought about it. Nick Saban has. And he's had some issues. He had some real issues with Harbaugh, a few years ago with the satellite camps and what Harbaugh was doing with that, going to IMG Academy. And I think that they obviously respect each other, but I mean, you couldn't face the more ultimate competitor as a coach than Nick Saban in my mind. So I think this guy has lots of motivations to have his team play well, and not to beat Jim Harbaugh. I'm not saying that, but I would think that that's an underlying motivation for him. But he knows that this was a disappointing season. A 10-2 season was disappointing for Alabama, and I laugh because it's just 2 losses doesn't seem like a horrendous production, but
No.
for them it is. And this team's going to be supremely motivated. We'll see how many, if there are other players who sit, and maybe that makes a difference. But right now, on paper, I agree with you, Mike. I don't know how Michigan beats Alabama unless they have their kind of fumbleitis game like Michigan had early in the season, and gives Michigan opportunities with turnovers and mistakes. But I don't think you see a lot of that from Nick Saban coach teams.
No, and I think the atmosphere for Michigan fans since the Ohio State game, the emails that I've been getting, the conversations that I've been having with Michigan fans, is a lot of them are hoping it's just a competitive game, that we don't get blown out like the Ohio State game. And to me, that's there just seems to be a lack of excitement from a lot of the fan base. Do you think a large portion, a growing portion of the fan base, is starting to lose faith in Jim Harbaugh at this point?
Well, I mean, I get a lot of those emails and those tweets as well, and I don't know, Mike. I mean, I think it's what I laugh about is like sometimes I hear Michigan fans, and it's if someone else from the outside of the Michigan family criticizes Harbaugh in Michigan, I feel like it's sort of like the thing where I can criticize my brother, but you can't. And it feels like they circle the wagons a little bit if someone else says, oh, yeah, Michigan's down. Michigan's never going to come back. And then I hear Michigan fans saying, well, no, don't. That's our coach. Don't talk about him. But then when you talk to them, they're like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where this is going. This is 5 years in, and expectations were so high, and people thought that Jim Harbaugh was the Messiah, and they were going to have a national championship run by year 3 or 4, and that hasn't happened. I mean, they haven't won a Big Ten championship. They haven't come close to that yet, or they've come close, but they haven't achieved it. And there is growing frustration, but I don't see Jim Harbaugh going anywhere. I don't think Ward Manuel wants him to go anywhere, and if he were to leave, it would be Jim Harbaugh finding an option that he would rather take right now, but I don't see that. So I think Michigan fans have to understand that this is what they have, and you can look at the positives. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna-ish, but there are some positives here. It's just that they cannot win these big games, and that's enormous. And I'm sure it's embarrassing when you've got an 8-game losing streak, and really, it's not just a Jim Harbaugh problem, but this streak against Ohio State is extending now into almost 2 decades. So that's not all on Jim Harbaugh. But it's tiresome, and I'm sure Michigan fans are very weary of this. And it's got to change at some point, I think. And I think they look at this. The Michigan players look at it as, well, why not right now against Alabama? This is where they have to try to to flip that switch a little bit.
Well, it is perplexing, and I was listening to a national recruiting analyst last week after the signing day, Barton Simmons from 24/7 Sports, and he said something interesting. Under Jim Harbaugh, Michigan is recruiting better than they have in decades, but Ohio State's recruiting even better at a level they've never recruited at. And I think the depressing thing is, he said, even with Ryan Day, he doesn't see that changing soon, and I'm starting to think that's true. And I think there lies the rub. If you're Jim Harbaugh, how do you change that? And it is a sobering question, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, I remember in July at the Big Ten media days, Mike, when people were saying to Michigan players, well, they got a coaching change at Ohio State, and even the players were like, look, it's Ohio State. I mean, we don't think that just switching coaches is going to change the direction of that program. So the Michigan players were saying that, and I had gone down in February for their signing day because Greg Madison was speaking, and the first time since he had left Michigan. So I went down there, and I really was extremely impressed with Ryan Day and how he handled everything, because I thought, well, maybe this is Columbus. I mean, I grew up in Cincinnati. I know what it's like there. And maybe it's me too daunting for the guy, and I was blown away by how he was completely unfazed by how big this job is, and he was embracing it, and he is so smooth. And just even watching his press conference the other day from signing day, I mean, he's just got it all together, and he's got a very good staff. But he was also handed the keys to a program that was operating pretty smoothly before, so it wasn't like he had to do much rebuilding. He just had to keep maintaining, and he's done that, and he will continue to do that. And it's hard, you look at these top programs that are in the playoffs. They have something established now. They've got a machine. They've got it. It's oiled, and you just got to keep adding that oil. And is that going to be insurmountable for Michigan to break into that group? I don't think so. I really don't. And this is not a thing for me to be optimistic about. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying. I think that Jim Harbaugh, he has done well in recruiting. I look at this and I'm like, why does everybody have to seize on? Well, he doesn't have as many 5-stars. He doesn't have this. Well, look, a few years ago, all we talked about, Michigan State. Look what Mark Antonio's doing with 2- and 3-star guys and developing. They can be developed into players who can unseat an Ohio State like Michigan State did, and can go to a Big Ten championship game like Michigan State did. So it's not insurmountable, but it is not just bringing in great players, it's developing them. And, I got to believe that Michigan's got a pretty good staff in right now that is doing that. And talking to Brady McGregor the other day, I mean, one of the things that really sold him on Michigan and committing was Sean Nua, a young guy, some new life on that defensive line. So, we'll see where this goes. I think that they really have to get more consistency on the staff at Michigan. Not so much turnover, guys leaving every year. It seems like every year there's a big departure, and I think they need some consistency. I mean, Saban has obviously had a lot of departures on his staff, and they've maintained consistency. But I just don't. I don't think it's going to be impossible for Michigan to break in, but it's certainly not going to be easy. No. And Ohio State's just got the upper hand right now, and I'm not sure how. I don't see them losing that either. So it's going to take some doing by Michigan. But I'm rambling there. But I'm not buying this thing that Michigan is eons behind Ohio State.
Final question for you, though, Angelique. Other than the game, with the week coming up, there is a lot going on for both teams, and of course for the media. As you know, it's as busy as all get out. But it's still a lot of fun for everyone, and it is, even though it's not the playoffs, it is a great reward for a long season, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, and then the weather's gonna be very nice in Florida. I mean, it's more fun when they're like on a beach, and then they can. A lot of these guys haven't seen haven't been to the beach, and it's fun to see them exploring that for the first time. But it's Orlando, and they'll go to different. I think they go to Universal Studios early in their stay, and they'll do a couple other things. They do a nice little visit with local kids, and they always seem very relaxed at those kind of events. And I don't think they'll have a bowling outing like they did a few years ago when the fight broke out with South Carolina. That was a little surreal, but no, I think it's a really nice trip for them. And you see sometimes the older guys have been there, done that, and they want to just get off their feet and hang out and rest for the game. I mean, there is that business trip element to it, but I do think that they have found a nice balance. And maybe they'll just go see Mickey and Minnie, and maybe go to the Star Wars and Disney and geek out a little bit. So no, it's a good trip, and the weather will be good. So I don't think there'll be any complaints. But they do all seem very excited about playing Alabama. So I think that's the biggest draw.
Here with us on our game day segment this week, as we've been previewing the Citrus Bowl coming up, a great opportunity for Michigan, a marquee game with two blue blood schools, has been beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. As always, Angelique, a pleasure having you on the show, and I wish you and the family a very Merry Christmas, and we look forward to the next visit, hopefully sometime soon.
Well, Merry Christmas, Mike. Thank you so much for having me on, and I guess I'll talk to you in 2020.
The season has gone by fast. I think for those of us around it, as you know, it seems like it never really ends, even though the calendar will roll the day of the bowl game. But as always, we're so happy to have you on the show. You're gracious with your time, and our listeners love to hear from you. So, again, we look forward to that next visit.
I look forward to it. Thanks so much. Merry Christmas. I hope you get something a little better than coal. I know that's usually what you get, Mike, but, maybe Santa will be nicer to you this year. Kidding. You do a wonderful job, and I'm sure that Santa will reward you accordingly.
I'm hoping so. Thank you, Angelique.
Quick Hits is next as we wrap it up for another week here on The Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew.
On Quick Hits today, there have been virtually no injury updates during Bowl Prep Week. Captain Carlo Kemp has been fighting an undisclosed injury for weeks now, but the word is he will be ready to go on Wednesday, and we need him. Other than that, we are very healthy for the season finale. Good news yesterday when Kwity Paye announced he would be returning next season. Most NFL types say he is more than ready for Sundays, but he wants to come back and enjoy college life for one more year. He also wants his degree, so great news. On Monday, we'll have our final visitors segment of the season. Our guest will be the radio play-by-play voice of Alabama football, Eli Gold. Eli has been the voice of the Crimson Tide for 31 years, so make sure you join us on Monday for that. That will do it for today's show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine weekend, everyone. Until Monday, take care, and as always, go Blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!